Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Catalina Gillies.
And I'm Ryan Bonazzo. Some sad pandemic news to report. The Thunder Bay District now has another COVID-19 death.
It's the 66th COVID-related death during the pandemic and the second in the last 8 days. Meanwhile, all 550 students at St. Martin Elementary School are being moved to virtual learning until at least on Monday. This after the health unit declared an outbreak yesterday evening at the school, where 9 people have now contracted the virus. Some of that spread did occur inside the facility itself. Public health continues to investigate. The health unit is also reporting 2 new cases today, both from the Thunder Bay area. Both are close contact infections. There are now 13 active cases across the district. There are no new cases today in the Northwestern Health Unit. There's still 1 active case across its catchment area.
Meanwhile, Ontario is reporting 711 new cases of COVID-19, the highest number of new infections in nearly 2 months, and 5 more people have died from the virus. And with cases on the rise and the weather getting colder, the province has unveiled an expanded COVID testing plan. Colin DeMello has the details.
With the Christmas holidays around the corner, the province's COVID-19 concerns are rising. Holidays have led to larger gatherings, which in turn drive up cases and force closures of schools and businesses.
Just today, with 711 new cases, we can project what's going to happen in the winter going forward. So we're anticipating our rates going up.
In order to keep schools open, the province is providing every single student with a take-home rapid test to be used over the winter break. Each student will get 5 take-home rapid tests. They have to take the first test on December 23rd and additional tests every Monday and Thursday until their kits run out. The government says the participation is voluntary and it's not required to return to school in January. The government is spending $50 million for 11 million rapid tests for students to avoid the same school shutdowns like last year.
And also to reduce any anxiety for parents given that period of time and what will probably happen over the holiday. We thought it'd be prudent to provide 5 rapid test kits to children, all children in Ontario, really premised on the objective of getting them back in January.
Pharmacies will be key to the testing strategy as well. The province says 1,300 pharmacies will eventually carry PCR testing for symptomatic and asymptomatic people. That includes take-home PCR self-collection tests. The specimen can be collected at home and returned to a pharmacy for lab processing. As well, in-store PCR testing by appointment only. The province says there are strict measures to ensure people are kept safe.
That should include a separate entrance, specific distancing, the placement of a medical mask if they don't have one as they enter the pharmacy. The appointments should be booked in advance, and the staff will be all prepared to have best practices for infection prevention and control. It should be a separate facility or space from their normal prescribing, from their immunization area, and all that is outlined in our guidelines.
Finally, the province will focus on the general public over the winter, going into communities with low vaccination and high hospitalization rates to offer pop-up testing in higher traffic settings.
Such as malls or holiday markets, to provide testing to individuals without symptoms, as well as provide vaccine education.
The targeted testing strategy could also be an effort by the government to stay on track and lift the proof of vaccination restrictions in January. The Chief Medical Officer of Health is committing to review the data in the new year.
If there's any risk, we'll make the decisions together with government that would be responsive to data.
And widespread testing will give the government the data it needs to make the final call.
Here in Thunder Bay, the announcement that pharmacies will be allowed to conduct PCR tests on symptomatic patients was met with some confusion. A local pharmacist said he was left in the dark by the province, not being told if or when he would receive the new COVID tests. Corey Nordstrom has the details.
PCR testing on those that are symptomatic or have been exposed to the virus is coming to Ontario pharmacies in the coming weeks. Dawson Heights owner and pharmacist Vinay Kapoor was not informed by the province that his pharmacy could be doing the tests in the near future. Ontario's website currently lists 3 locations that are eligible to conduct PCR testing in the city, Dawson Heights as the only pharmacy. Kapoor says the lack of information from the government has been frustrating.
Not the first time. I mean, it also happened with vaccinations. I found out through the media that was one of the stores selected for the first round of COVID vaccinations.
The province's website states that Dawson Heights will also have take-home PCR kits that a symptomatic patient could use on their own.
It would take a lot of the risk away if they weren't in store, if we were able to give that package for them to test at home and use pharmacy as a drop-off point. That would be ideal scenario.
But Kapoor wants to be sure that when the province is set to send out the more accurate tests, his business is prepared to administer the tests in a safe manner.
We will not be rolling out the program unless we can put all those fears to rest. And if it means us coming in after hours and sanitizing after those tests, we will do that, but not to expose our regular patients. That's our main concern, is their safety.
However, locals that we spoke with don't seem concerned about visiting a pharmacy that hosts symptomatic patients.
If our situation were to change and we were going to go into lockdown or to another level, that might change for me.
There's clearly like aisles that you walk through and everyone's kind of directed in a certain manner. So people are divided if they are going to get tested.
I think my immune system's strong enough to get it, but I am worried about maybe old folks might be a little bit worried to catch it, so I'd understand if they'd be worried.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Ontario's police watchdog has found that Thunder Bay police officers did not commit any criminal offenses in connection with the death of a 50-year-old man back in 2010. The SIU launched the investigation this summer after the incident was included in the OIPRD review of unexplained Indigenous deaths in the city. The officers had removed an intoxicated, unwanted house guest from the Royal Edward Arms and then left him on the sidewalk. He later collapsed and died in hospital. An autopsy attributed the death to coronary artery disease. The SIU concluded the officers were not aware the man had a heart condition and needed medical attention.
A 20-year-old Thunder Bay man has been arrested. He's accused of robbing a Shoppers Drug Mart early this morning with a machete. It happened around 4 a.m. at the McIntyre Center store on Memorial Avenue. Police say the man pointed the large blade in the direction of a security guard as he began to exit without paying for his items. The suspect was fleeing the scene in his vehicle as police arrived. He was arrested minutes later, several blocks away.
The days of getting a reminder in the mail for a health card or driver's license renewal are numbered. The paper renewal notices will be phased out beginning in March. Beth McDonnell has more details.
Paper renewal notices for driver's licenses, license plate stickers, and health cards are being phased out in favor of digital reminders. For some, it's acceptable.
And digital, it's more convenient. 100%.
That doesn't matter to me. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Others have concerns.
The government should give us by mail too.
You want both?
Yes.
Could be more convenient, but then again, you could easily delete that email and I don't know, yes and no.
The government says the move will save taxpayers $29 million over 5 years in postage and mailing costs, money that will be redirected to education, along with 80 million pieces of paper. People can sign up to receive an email, text, phone call, or combination of the three for when their documentation expires. There are several exemptions, including people 70 and up.
I think that that's a pretty decent cutoff, and I think that like in a world where everybody is going paperless and my bank barely sends me any mail, then like getting a little reminder text or a reminder email is actually probably going to remind me instead of being a thing that gets lost in a pile of mail somewhere that I rarely look at.
Also exempt from driver's license related renewals, places with company fleet vehicles and people who jointly own vehicles. For health cards, temporary foreign workers, and people experiencing homelessness.
Thunder Bay City Council has some new options to look at regarding a potential indoor turf complex. Community Services GM Kelly Robertson has delivered a confidential report to council members containing 8 expressions of interest for a potential new facility, but no decisions will be made until Ottawa decides on funding for the original turf project. Jonathan Wilson reports.
4 of the new submissions from outside parties are short-term proposals, which may include building a bubble for indoor soccer or other sports. 4 of the other submissions are for long-term projects, and none of them are being made public at this time. Mayor Bill Morrow points out that bubbles and other ideas were turned down by City Council 2 years ago. Morrow then became the main proponent for the permanent steel structure at Chapels Park. But then in March, Council voted 7-5 against awarding the $39 million contract. Morrow says he'll look at the proposals, which may not actually be new ones.
So we're now back to reviewing expressions of interest. Again, I'll be very open-minded. You remain optimistic that maybe there's something in there that will be good for the community, that more councillors look like they may be willing to support. But it will be interesting if they are proposals that were similar to the ones that we said no to 2 years ago.
Community Services Manager Kelly Robertson is asking Council to defer any discussion about the proposals until a new federal funding application for the original project is decided on. The city is seeking $22 million, which, if approved, could change a lot of councillors' minds on whether to go ahead with it. Morrow says he remains convinced the original indoor turf facility would be a great tool to attract new people.
As I say to people all the time, for me, how do you attract people? How do you keep young people? How do you attract talent to your community? Remember, from my perspective at least, we're in a competition with the rest of the province for people and for talent. And these sorts of amenities, in my mind, are one tool that you have as a community to try and attract and keep people who consider where they're going to live, work, and play.
If the new federal application gets the green light and Council approves the contract, Robertson says construction could begin in May 2022 and wrap up in September of the following year. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Today marked the final day of employment training for a course created by and for First Nations people. Around 50 Indigenous learners are in the city from across Northern Ontario and Manitoba for a specialized course teaching them how to be security guards. Fires and flooding that caused evacuations have made security a growing need in Northern First Nations. The course was started by Sheshagwaning First Nation, and they've partnered with Superior Strategies and Indigenous Services Canada for the 10-day learning session. The first of its kind training not only includes the basics of security, but also mental health and first aid.
It felt amazing to know that, what was started is growing, and it can grow nationally. There's no bounds. So it's very exciting to see.
The situations like a flooding or fire evacuation, they get really complex, and you need to be able to be comfortable with the people who are assisting you to begin with.
There's a lot of people being affected by different things that need the support. And all this training and being able to show on a resume that, you know mental health, you've been trained on mental health and first aid and everything, that's great to have on your resume.
Organizers say there's a big demand for Indigenous people in the security field, and many of the grads here are already in contact with future employers.
The Salvation Army's largest fundraiser of the year is back once again. The Christmas Kettle campaign hopes to raise more than $200,000 to help support the new Journey to Life Center and other Salvation Army services. Mitchell Ringos has more.
The annual Christmas kettles raised $220,000 last year, and officials have high hopes again for this year, with a new goal of $235,000. The money helps support all of the Salvation Army's services, including the food bank, soup van, and new Journey to Life Center. The kettle stations have some changes this year with the new tap options of $5, $10, or $20 that can be tapped up to 10 times for the bigger donations. And of course, dropping cash into the kettles is still welcome. Executive Director Gary Ferguson believes this new feature will let everyone take part.
It's an exciting option, and again, a lot of people will say, I just don't carry change, and that's true. So this option gives a person to use they can use a phone app, they can use an iPhone, they can use a watch, they can use a card and just tap the tap option, and you have 3 choices. You have the 5, the 10, or the 20.
And volunteers are a huge reason for the kettle's annual success, as last year they had over 880 volunteers in the various stores, volunteering 2,723 hours. For opening day, 4 Lakehead Thunderwolves hockey players volunteered at the Memorial Avenue Walmart store's kettle. Wolves forward Cole Edwards thinks it's very important to help out.
Some people aren't as fortunate as others during the holiday season, and I think, like I said previously, it's the least we can do to give back. And obviously Salvation Army is not only big here in Thunder Bay, but I'm from Kingston, Ontario, and they have a huge presence back home as well. So yeah, it's obviously extremely important.
The kettles will be located at all 3 Walmart locations and many other stores from now until December 24th, along with the LCBO location starting on December 1st. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.